Hello, I'm Sebastian. Welcome to 9 Trees podcast. Today, I will summarize and review the book. A Different Mirror by Ronald Takaki is a landmark work of multicultural history that reframes the story of the United States through the experiences of many peoples who built, resisted, and reshaped the nation. Rather than treating immigration, conquest, slavery, and labor as side chapters, Takaki places them at the center of the American narrative. He traces how indigenous nations, Africans and African Americans, Europeans of varied backgrounds, and immigrants from Asia and Latin America encountered the promises and contradictions of American democracy. The book examines how power and identity formed through law, economics, and culture, and how ideas about race evolved alongside expansion, industrialization, and war. Takaki also highlights alliances and conflicts among groups, showing that American history is not a single story, but an ongoing negotiation over belonging and rights. The result is a sweeping, accessible synthesis that invites readers to see the United States as a plural society, shaped by global forces and local struggles. I will give you key takeaways from this book. Firstly, recasting the American story as a multiracial narrative. A Different Mirror argues that the United States cannot be understood through a single dominant storyline. Takaki reorganizes familiar events such as colonization, revolution, westward expansion, industrialization, and modern conflict by asking who is usually left out and what changes when their experiences are included. He shows that the nation was shaped not only by political ideals, but also by the movement of peoples across oceans and borders, by forced labor and dispossession, and by the constant contest over citizenship. This approach challenges the idea that diversity is a recent development or a separate topic from mainstream history. Instead, pluralism is presented as foundational, with race and ethnicity deeply connected to land, work, and state power. By juxtaposing multiple communities, the book reveals patterns that become harder to ignore, how economic needs encouraged migration while social fears produced exclusion, and how democratic language coexisted with hierarchy. The narrative invites readers to see American identity as constructed through conflict and compromise among groups, rather than inherited as a fixed tradition. This reframing helps explain why debates over belonging, rights, and national purpose recur across centuries, and why they often center on race, labor, and immigration. Secondly, indigenous dispossession and the architecture of expansion. A major theme is how the growth of the United States depended on the displacement of native peoples and the redefinition of land as property. Takaki situates indigenous nations as political actors with their own diplomacy, economies, and social systems, not as background to European settlement. He explores how treaties, warfare, and forced removal were linked to the expansion of agriculture, trade routes, and later industrial development. The book emphasizes that ideas about civilization and progress often served as moral cover for conquest, while law and policy translated violence into institutions. This history also clarifies the origins of racial categories and cultural stereotypes that justified taking land and limiting native sovereignty. At the same time, Takaki underscores indigenous resistance and survival, showing that native communities adapted, negotiated, and fought to protect their autonomy. By connecting removal and reservation systems to broader national ambitions, the book explains how expansion created enduring inequalities in wealth, political power, and cultural recognition. Readers come away with a clearer sense of how foundational these processes were to American prosperity and state building, and how present-day conflicts over territory, resources, and legal status are rooted in long historical trajectories rather than isolated disputes. Thirdly, slavery, freedom, and the making of racial hierarchy. Takaki examines how slavery and its aftermath shaped American institutions and ideas of freedom. He shows that racial hierarchy was not simply prejudice at the personal level, but a system reinforced through economics, law, and politics. The book links the growth of plantation slavery to global markets and national wealth, highlighting how exploitation was normalized even as the nation celebrated liberty. It also explores how Black resistance, abolitionist activism, and the Civil War transformed national debates about citizenship and human rights. Yet emancipation did not end racial domination. The book follows how new forms of control emerged through violence, segregation, labor arrangements, and political exclusion. Takaki also traces how racial meanings shifted over time, influenced by scientific racism, popular culture, and policy decisions. This topic helps readers understand the deep roots of structural inequality and why legal changes alone did not guarantee social and economic equality. By placing African American history at the center of the national narrative, the book illuminates the contradiction between democratic ideals and racialized practice, and shows how struggles over voting, education, labor, and safety became defining features of American life. The analysis encourages readers to connect past frameworks to modern disparities without reducing history to inevitability. Fourthly, immigration, labor, and the politics of exclusion. The book shows how immigration has been shaped by economic demand for labor and by political efforts to control who belongs. Takaki pays close attention to Asian immigration, including Chinese and Japanese communities, to illustrate how workers were recruited for railroads, agriculture, and urban industries while simultaneously being treated as outsiders. He analyzes how nativism, racial ideology, and labor competition contributed to discriminatory laws and violence, culminating in exclusionary policies and restrictive quotas. This story is not limited to one group. It becomes a template for understanding how different immigrant communities encountered shifting definitions of whiteness and Americanness. Takaki demonstrates that labor history and race history are inseparable. Who is allowed to work, at what wages, and under what protections is tied to how a society ranks groups. He also highlights community formation, political organizing, and legal challenges that contested unequal treatment. By linking workplace dynamics to national policy, the book explains why debates about immigration often mix economic anxieties with cultural and security narratives. Readers gain a more precise understanding of how laws can convert social prejudice into durable structures and how immigrants have continually negotiated identity, solidarity, and survival in the face of exclusion. Lastly, intergroup relations, identity, and the meaning of citizenship. A Different Mirror emphasizes that American history is not only about relations between a dominant group and minorities, but also about interactions among many communities. Takaki explores how coalitions formed around shared interests such as labor rights, civil rights, and anti-war movements, and how tensions arose from competition, stereotypes, and unequal access to political power. This attention to intergroup dynamics helps explain the complexity of identity in the United States, where people are shaped by class, region, religion, gender expectations, and migration histories alongside race. The book also tracks changing legal and cultural definitions of citizenship, showing how access to rights has expanded through struggle rather than being universally granted from the start. Court rulings, legislation, and social movements repeatedly tested who could be naturalized, who could vote, who could own property, and who counted as fully American. Takaki presents citizenship as a contested status tied to power and belonging, not merely a formal document. This perspective allows readers to interpret contemporary arguments about national identity, multiculturalism, and social cohesion with a longer historical lens. The book suggests that understanding the past relationships among communities is essential for building more equitable civic life and for recognizing how pluralism can be a source of strength rather than fragmentation. In conclusion, this book is best suited for students, educators, book club readers, and anyone seeking a clearer, more inclusive understanding of United States history. It is especially valuable for readers who feel that standard narratives overlook the experiences of indigenous peoples, African Americans, and immigrants, or who want historical context for current debates about race, immigration, and citizenship. The benefit is practical as well as intellectual. Takaki helps readers recognize recurring patterns in how power operates through law, labor markets, and cultural stories, making it easier to evaluate modern claims about opportunity, belonging, and national identity. By connecting communities rather than isolating them into separate chapters, the book encourages empathy grounded in evidence and highlights how alliances and conflicts have shaped social change. Compared to many survey histories, it stands out for its synthesis across multiple groups and periods, offering a coherent framework for understanding pluralism as central to the American project. It is worth buying because it functions both as a foundational overview and as a lens for interpreting contemporary life, helping readers see the United States not as a single mirror reflecting one face, but as a complex society built through many histories. If you would like to support Ronald Takaki, you can buy the book through the Amazon link I've provided in the podcast description. After reading the book, please let me know what you think and share your thoughts. See you around.